Alright, so this is teaching the squat. We'll start with the front squat, and then I'll flip around to show you how to set up the back squat. The motion is more or less the same, it's more so how you set up your arms, but same motion, so we'll start with one, then go to the other. Alright, I'm going to face backwards the wrong way just for the sake of the video. We'll start with the front squat first. Alright, so again, you always want to face in the rack so you can put the bar back if you need to, but so you can see, I'm going to go backwards. Alright, so there's two easy ways to grip the bar. A straight arm grip or a clean grip. I give my athletes a preference, either one. So I'll start with a cross arm grip. So I'm going to go straight arms, I'm going to go step under, and the bar is going to sit on the front of my delt here, not quite on my collarbone. It is going to sit up here against your neck a little bit on the delt, and then just 1 and 2. There's your setup. The hook grip or fork grip, some people call it, 2 to 3 fingers, roughly a little outside shoulder width, and I'm going to step under, keep elbows high. If you use cleans, Olympic lifts, if you're going cleans and you're catching the bar, there's a lot of value in developing strength in that position. In the upper back, in the wrist, in your lat flexibilities when you actually go to catch the bar, you're strong up there. So there's a lot of return on that if you use cleans. If you don't use cleans in your program, I find it can beat up the wrists a little bit. Some athletes don't have the lat mobility to get through, so you don't have to. In that case, the cross arm grip might be your better option. Either one works. Some kids will naturally gravitate towards one or the other. I haven't noticed a major difference between the two, so I tell them it's preference, whichever one you want to use, go for it. So for the sake of the video, I'm going to go with the cross arm grip because that's what I use most often. So just so you can see. Alright, so cross arm grip, I'm going to step under. 1, 2. Alright. My feet are about shoulder width apart, maybe a little wider. Toes are turned out slightly. Now my motion here is chest up. And my cue is simply squat straight down, keep your weight across the whole foot, and back up. Straight down, back up. Pretty straightforward. If you find that kids are falling forward, your cue would be keep your weight toward your heels more. And that'll kind of push them back. We don't necessarily want the weight directly in the heel. You want the weight across your entire foot. But if they're shifting forward, the cue of keep your weight in your heel will shift them from their forefoot to their whole foot, which is really what you want. So it's almost over-cueing in a way to get them back to that medium. If you find kids are dropping their elbows, your cue would be chest up, elbows up, or stay tall. So if I find kids are starting to get here, my cue for them would be stay tall. And that'll force them or encourage them to stay and fight to keep that posture. That's another cue I use is fight to keep that posture, really emphasize it, because it does take a conscious effort to not let your elbows drop, especially having the transition in the bottom. Fight to stay tall, fight to stay up, and go from there. One technique tip, if you find a lot of your kids are falling forward, one thing that will really help is pause front squats. So what the pause is going to do, it's going to take some weight off the bar because it's harder, but it's also going to force them to master and hold and build strength in this position down here, and they'll transition in and out of the bottom better. The same goes for the back squat. If they're falling forward or they're rushing, pause squats, really build that strength, competence, and confidence in the bottom where you're always going to be the weakest because you have the least leverage. That's just the way it is. Everybody's the weakest in the bottom. So pause, I have a saying I say on social media all the time, pause squats fix a lot of problems. So I'll start a lot of training blocks with a pause squat, especially coming off, say, in season where maybe we do like a trap bar instead of a squat. So anytime I'm reintroducing the squat, I'll do 2-3 weeks of pause squats to really dial in that bottom position. So if you find your kids are either rushing it or having trouble hitting depth, pause squats are a really good option. So sets of 5 to 8, 1 to 2 seconds in the bottom, and really freeze it. Pro tip for you. So the back squat setup is going to be very similar. My head's going to be right down the middle of the bar, and the bar is going to sit across my shoulders here. All right, so it's not on my neck, it's more across my shoulders. When you drive your elbows down, right, your traps and your upper back are going to create a shelf, and that's where the bar is going to sit. So pull the bar down to your back, it sits on your traps, and then the motion is the same, right? So my setup here, my hands are outside shoulder width. My hands are a little wider on the back squat than they are the front squat, but that's me personally. As long as you're outside your elbows, as long as your hand is outside your elbow, you're fine. If I go hand inside, it'll kind of push me back here, then I have an awkward kind of rack position. It'll sit weird on my back. So hands outside your elbows, so here versus here. And then pull that bar down, and then the squat motion itself is the same. So it's going to look like this. I'm pointer finger on the ring, that's just me personally. So step under, drive your elbows down, hands outside the shoulders, and then squat straight down, chest up, stay tall. Pretty straightforward. And that's the back. You can start with either one. As long as the weight is appropriate, you can start with the back squat on day one. I've done it plenty of times. You can start with the front squat, I usually do. But if you have a kid that can do the movement properly and you have an appropriate weight, there's no reason you can't start with the back squat on day one, maybe just the bar, or even a 15 kilogram bar. This is a 45, that'd be 20 kilograms. So a lighter bar you could, or an older kid that has some movement competency, either one, as long as they can execute it. But that's teaching the front squat and the back squat.